Dear Slovaks, dear Slovaks, dear guests, I wish you all a wonderful evening. This is the author of the lecture. Let me, in addition to welcoming Mr. President, Mr. Chairman of the National Council of the Slovak Republic, Mr. President Gasparovich, I would also like to thank Father Cardinal Duke for his kind words in Nitra today. We care very much, Father Cardinal, about the best Slovak-Czech and Czechoslovak relations, and whenever I go to the Czech Republic, I will always carry a ball in my hand, not a ball on my head. Thank you very much for what you said in Nitra today. We promised that we would always glorify the state oaths with dignity. And since the advent of this government in 2023, we have paid great attention to acting as a self-confident, proud Slovak Republic, as a self-confident, proud political representation. Therefore, I would like to thank everyone who contributed in any way to the organization of today's event, because this is how a self-confident and proud Slovak Republic should look like. I would like to thank the team from the Ministry of Defense, but also the others who joined us. Thank you very much. Dear guests, dear Slovaks, those who do not know their past do not have a future. And it is up to this nation if its so-called false elite will deliberately ignore or even cross its past. At today's celebration of the Holy Cyril and Method, we were carried out in vests. Thank you. We only remember 2 immigrants who came with impractical and unused language. The disrespect was so far away that no one dared to laughingly call the hlaholika a blabolika. Although it was brought to the people living on our land, they could never have been our ancestors, the ancient Slovaks. It is literally unbelievable. Dear Slovaks, as enemies of our own state, it is important that we do not have any national, cultural, or spiritual identity, that we are considered only as a group of soulless masses of people who came here, who do not even deserve their statehood, and who are here only to blindly and obediently listen to the great and powerful. Unfortunately for us Slovaks, the stories of foreign historians were written, and it would be a mistake to assume that they always wrote only the truth about us. The stories written by foreign poets are often inclined to silence the existence of those who play a decisive role in these stories. The mission of the world's civil method is so timeless that it cannot be put into history alone. Pope John Paul II, in his homily delivered in Rome in November 1981, said to the Slovaks, "Stay faithful to the heritage of the fathers of the Holy Civil Method. Live in accordance with it constantly. Protect it in the certainty that it is the foundation of your spiritual greatness and the real cultural height of your nation." The Holy Father perhaps did not even know how many attentive listeners he had at the time of the people who considered the significance of the mission of the Holy Civil Method for our nation. Finally, it was probably no coincidence, dear Mr. President Gasparovich, that 11 years later, in 1992, the fathers of the Constitution of the Slovak Republic and you, Mr. President, are among them. In their preamble, they refer to the civil method's spiritual heritage and the historical reference to the Great Wall. If you allow me, I should not make any historical abbreviations or complicate this precious auditorium in detail. However, together with this sacred place, we can legally and without any doubt declare to the whole world that without the mission of the Holy Civil Method, it would be impossible to talk about cultural and political independence, nor about the state superiority of Slovaks and Slovenes. Despite more than 1,000 years of absence of territorial, cultural, or political autonomy, our nation has maintained its own identity to this day. Once again, for 1,000 years we have not done anything, and yet our identity has remained. The famous Czech historian who later lived in the Western world, František Graus, does not legally say that the heritage of Slovakia and Slovaks creates a small historical miracle among the neighboring nations. Dear Slovaks, dear guests, those who welcome us in Slovakia do not come to Slovakia so that the two outstanding brothers of Slovakia would give up their national identity, but rather because they do not fall into such a strange scheme of the world that is turning its back on them. You know, to declare to the civil method heritage is not a kind of charity for us. For us, it is an opportunity for truth and justice. We desire to reveal the truth about their great work, the language of writing, education, legal regulations, great translations about the position of the Slovaks at that time, and among them also the old Slovaks, in Central Europe. What were their relations to the power centers, in the West and in the East? To emphasize and to raise the Holy Brothers of Slovakia means to determine a clear value orientation of our politics. It is not about connecting the states to the religious ideology, as some endlessly repeat. It is about the strength of values and the spiritual wisdom to properly incorporate into the minds and relationships of our people. The European Union, but also to the whole world. Today there are missing figures who could at least be compared to the brothers of Slovakia. Saints Cyril and the Method were connecting. They were not building new iron wheels. Even Devon, on whom we stand now, felt in the past in one sad role. Right under the castle there was an iron wheel which was breaking up the European continent, breaking up the culture, relations between people. And it is more than sad that someone in Europe is missing a similar iron wheel. They want to divide the West and the East again, and unfortunately, the iron wheel is becoming a reality. Relationships were broken, and everyone who is just showing interest and understanding in working for the iron wheel is immediately surrounded by betrayal of European values. The defenders and constructors of the new iron wheel forgot the serious words of St. John Paul II, who said, "Europe must breathe with both lungs, both the East and the West." And this is how St. Cyril and the Method are the representatives of personalities who have crossed the framework of the Slavic world. I refuse to give up our traditions. I refuse to give up our history, and we will work for peace through the iron wheel. St. Cyril and the Method are a certificate of truth for us and for the whole Slavic world. St. Cyril and the Method dominated by wisdom, education, values, and self-respect. What difference does it make if we look at what spiritual and valueless people do in the media and in the public space of celebrities? Health, reason, tradition, national culture are being suppressed, dominated, they are being destroyed. I express the desire that on the September meeting, the health, reason, and the necessary majority of the members of the Slovak Parliament will support in the final vote the proposal of the novelization of the Constitution in the basic cultural, ethical, and value-related issues. If we cannot agree in Slovakia that there are only two views, and that in schools we should learn only what is in accordance with the Constitution of the Slovak Republic, returning the definition of marriage as the only union of men and women, we are on a very dangerous path for the whole country. Immoral and distorted progressivism and liberalism can only destroy our country. The Slovak brothers did not come to our country with weapons, but with books and rules. Please realize that Slovakia is at the crossroads again. Old ideological dogmas, we all know them for centuries and nowhere else, as well as bureaucratic international structures that are changing behind the scenes and directly in front of our eyes. And we must say that not all changes are positive. Many of us are clearly disturbed, and many of us are not welcome. The international system that was created after the Second World War on the basis of tragic experiences is getting its last wounds from love. From international law, only a set of purposefully used rules has been created, primarily in favor of the big and strong, and with the expectation of absolute obedience of the smaller and weaker. The big ones talk about a new war and pretend to be peace activists. And those who constantly emphasize peace are well considered war criminals. Our opponents on all fronts let anyone in who is allowed to ask a meaningful question about our future fate in this changing world. I ask questions. Are we going to stick to our own and fight for our survival, or do we want to dissolve in the sea of stronger players? What contribution do we want to make to the common life of Europe? Let our obedience and subordination demand anything from us, especially so that we do not run away from the Council. The desire to use double meters and kilometers, to justify the actions of some so that we rush to tear each other's bodies for the exact opposite in the case of others, losing at the same time the last remnants of authority and respect. This is in addition to the dispute between Slovakia and Slovakia about the Solunk Brotherhood, in addition to the dispute about the implementation of the sovereignty that Rostislav from Svetopluk overshadowed. We Slovaks have a duty to seek agreement and cooperation on the basis of equality and mutual advantage. We are trying to understand our partners. We are trying to understand the motives of their actions. This is what the Slovaks should bring in these fractured times of European history. Only our complexes of underestimation, smallness, and trampling of knees can persuade us and send us to oblivion. Exactly as it happened after the fall of the Great Moravian Reich, instability caused instability and the fall of a sovereign state in its span. This is a moment of history that we cannot forget. Even today, we come and go with an attempt to preserve our national interests. If we refuse to support another sanctions package against the Russian Federation, if we do not know the answer to who and how will protect us and compensate for the damage that will be caused to Slovakia by the ideological proposal of the European Commission to stop any Russian-made supplies from January 1st, 2028. Dear Slovaks, dear guests, we do not have the support of an opposition and media bloc that does not know what national pride, sovereignty, and national interests are, but it knows very well what it is to serve others. On the contrary, we must expect that this bloc will support and will directly organize talks with the European Parliament or now with the Council of Europe or the European Commission against the current government, that we have a different opinion on the war, that we want peace, that we want to put a healthy mind into the Constitution, that we fight for our households and businesses not to pay irrationally high prices for energy. The order has already been given. The EU observer has announced, I quote, please, I quote, hit Slovakia with all you can. Freeze their financial resources, start actions to violate the rights of the European Union, do thorough audits, offend and boycott them publicly, join the law enforcement and give the journalists information against Slovakia. End of quote. Why? Because Slovakia wants to be sovereign and self-governing. And we must answer whether we are ready to conquer this battle. I am ready to conquer this battle. Dear Slovaks, we are going through difficult trials. When I recently visited Rome in the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore, the translator told me various nice stories. For example, about the origin of the ceiling from gold, brought by Christopher Columbus from America, and other interesting things. However, it drew me to a place that must be a place for Slovaks and Slovenes, a place where the tabula reminds that in this basilica the saints proposed a whole method to approve the liturgical texts of the ancient Slavs. For me, it is an incredible story of wisdom and spirituality. Maybe we could also write a day of wisdom, education, and spiritual values. Greetings from Divina, all of Slovakia. Greetings from Divina to all the citizens, as well as all Slovaks abroad, who are proud of the Cyril Methodic heritage. I am not just addressing it. It is a binding directive for me in accepting serious political decisions. In conclusion, the authors of an interesting publication about the losses and discoveries of Hungarian history have asked themselves a very good question. What did our ancestors have to go through for us, their descendants, to be able to live as Slovaks? If our ancestors came here to the Carpathian Valley without a war horn or weapons, God willing, our descendants would be able to live here in peace, work and raise children who would be the pride not only of us Slovaks, but of the whole of Europe. Let us keep a healthy mind so that we can live and act wisely and correctly. Long live the states of the Holy Cyril method. Thank you for coming.